Welcome, everyone, to the Union Federation podcast, where we discuss both Star Trek and the Orville here on the Fandom Podcast Network. My name is Kevin. I'll be your captain. And on this week's episode, this is Union Federation episode 218. This is our continuing limited series, the final episode of this limited series, the Orville crew profile. And this time we are discussing all of the guest stars, the extra special guest stars and Star Trek alumni that graced our screen and also worked behind the scene on the Orville. And I'd like to first of all remind you guys, of course, Union Federation here on the Fandom Podcast Network. And of course, if you want to scan the QR code there, it'll take you to our website, support us there. And Union Federation can also be found on the BQN. Here we are discussing the Orville. This is, of course, the final episode of the 10-episode limited series. And I'd like to welcome, of course, my crew that's going to guide us through this fun discussion of the guest stars and Star Trek alumni. We welcome, as usual, the founder of the BQN, first officer, of course, and our counselor, Amy Nelson. What is going on?
Well, hello. Things are going great. A little sad to wrap up our crew profiles, but this today is going to be super fun and everywhere.
All right. Well, so, and Amy, you're going to help me out, by the way, because when we start talking about some of these main guest stars and stuff, I'm going to have you read a little background on some of these too, because there's a few of these guest stars that we have to spend some time on. Because some of them were likable and some of them were not. And so we're going to have that discussion there as well. So, all right, but let's get the rest of our crew here. First of all, we need to have my co-captain and security and weapons officer, Mr. Kyle Wagner. Welcome, sir.
I'm sorry, Amy, I was going through some of your receipts for the BQN, and we got to talk about you trying to claim these tax breaks on assimilating equipment.
Ooh.
Busted!
My assimilation. Yeah.
All right, guys, let's go ahead and welcome our special guest ambassador, Miss Alyssa Courtright. Welcome back. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you for having me back. I had so much fun doing the other two.
Well, I'm glad you're back here, and I'm also very happy that you reached out to us to, first of all, celebrate your Orville fandom, and also be a wonderful extra voice with this. And, for those of you that are listening or watching too, normally, when we've been doing these podcasts here, let me show for the 10 episode limit series, talking about each of the main cast members, we would assign 2 episodes to each of these characters, and sometimes we'd have an honorable mention. But we're not going to be doing that, obviously, with this episode here, because we're just going to have to shoot from the hip and remember what we can remember of all of the guest stars and Star Trek alumni. A lot of them were very memorable, so probably be pretty easy to do so. But we did want to mention that we do have some previously stuff that we've had done on the Union Federation podcast and some coming soon. First of all, as we mentioned, we've done, of course, all of the main crew members here. If you're watching the YouTube video, you can see all of them there. So make sure you go back and check those out. And we've recently done our thoughts on Star Trek Section 31 movie. And last year we did our final wrap up of season 5, the final season of Star Trek Lower Decks. And we also did a wonderful 2-part a limited 8-episode, or actually 9-episode limited series talking about all the 2-part episodes of Star Trek The Next Generation. And also, we love to celebrate other Star Trek inspired movies and TV series here on the Union Federation. And one of those that we're going to look back upon, because now we have a sequel to the famous Black Mirror episode from season 4 called USS Callister. Well, the new season just dropped, season 7, episode 6. There is the sequel, the USS Callister Into Infinity, not and beyond, just into infinity. So check back with us for that. We're looking forward to doing that. But, Alyssa, you've been rocking some pictures of some wonderful cosplay you've been doing. Well, I said I was going to threaten you guys that we're going to show some of mine. We started in Orville kind of costume. We didn't start it. We just kind of got everyone together for some great photographs with our Orville costume group at Dragon Con several years ago. And we would get together every now and then. I haven't been to Dragon Con recently, so I kind of miss these guys. That's my friend Steeler over here, and we did some professional pictures there. I had my Admiral's uniform. I love that purple going on there, and had some professional pictures taken. But we also showed up at the at one of the hotels, and if you see the picture here on YouTube, you see how many of us that there were. A lot of different ranks there. You know, we even had the girl that had the Claire doctor like schmuck that she wears, the really kind of slick one there. A lot of fun there. And we had one guy do the latchcomb. I guess he won the latchcomb because the knife was coming through his hand. You got to look at that there. So so the Orville is loved, and one of the traditions that we had at Dragon Con was we would invite ourselves to the 10 forward Star Trek party they would have every Saturday night. And so you have a bunch of people in Orville showing up at a Star Trek party. It was a lot of fun. So, and this one was one of my favorite moments. We got together, several of us got together, and we got a picture with several of the cast members of the Orville. The actor that played Chad Coleman, of course. Chad Coleman, the actor. We also had, I'm forgetting names here, forgive me. We had Bortis, we had Clyden, we had Jay Lee, of course, as Lamar, and then right there in the middle with the white shirt, we have Jackson himself, who, of course, plays Isaac. And if you look closely, Jay Lee is holding up the down button badge. That is mine, and he held it for the picture, which is pretty cool there. So
I don't think you should really be having anything to do with those badges. That's a bad mojo thing there.
Okay, guys, well, let's go ahead and dive into it. Let's go ahead and get into the first Orville shuttle mission. Now, what we wanted to let you guys know, of course, we're going to be talking about all the guest stars, the Star Trek alumni, but we're going to be doing this in parts, okay? So the first thing that we're going to be doing is we're talking about the reoccurring guest stars. And we're going to get our thoughts on some of the main ones that were in a lot of them because they were crucial to a lot of the plot lines, whether it was the A plot line or the B plot line. And then you'll start getting down to some of the other ones that had only a few appearances or even one appearances. So those will be the recurring guest stars. The second thing we're talking about is the admirals. We had about, I think, 5 of them or so. We're going to get our thoughts on those. And then we have the special guest stars and the Seinfeld contingency. I'll explain that when we get there. And then we have the extra special guest stars, the ones that, as we talked about earlier, Seth MacFarlane seems to have on his speed dial. Yeah, come on over, Liam Neeson. I need you to do a spot here, stuff like that. Then we're going to get into the Star Trek alumni, the Star Trek guests that guest starred in front of the camera. Have fun with that. Then, speaking of Star Trek, we're going to talk about the Star Trek alumni who directed some episodes, and we're going to have the last part. We're going to talk about the special guest director that kind of got things going for us. All right, so you guys ready? We're going to talk about Yaphet first. We all know who Yaphet here is. Now, Amy, we got a little bit of information on Yaphet. I would like you to go ahead and read his little bio here, please.
Well, Yaphet was a gelatin lieutenant and engineer aboard the USS Orville. Now, according to Admiral Tom Halsey, Yaphet had already been an engineer for years on the Orville prior to the arrival of Captain Mercer. In 2420, Yaphet was passed over for promotion to chief engineer of the Orville, for which he was considered next in line in favor of Lamar. In 2421, Yaphet received the Sapphire Star for his courageous actions during the Battle of Earth. Now, Yaphet is known for an overbearing crush on Dr. Finn that culminated in a short-lived sexual relationship when Claire was under the influence of a Retepsian pheromones. That was funny. And Yaphet's voice is provided by the late Norm Macdonald, who also portrays his human form.
Now, thank you very much for that, Amy. What I did want to mention was when I went into putting the order of the regular guest stars or recurring one, I went in the order of who made the most appearances. And Norm Macdonald is voicing Yaphet, appeared in 22 episodes of I think a total of 34 or 36 episodes that we have of the Orville. So that was a lot. So that's why I wanted to kind of talk about him first. And Alyssa, with you being our special guest ambassador here, I want to get your thoughts on Yaphet.
Yeah, I didn't really know what Yaphet was at first because obviously he's just this blob that like Ed trips over in the hallway. So yeah, I just kind of thought he was like a little like gag at first, I guess, but then he kind of became like a fully, fleshed out character. Didn't really like him too much at the beginning because yeah, Claire kept telling him no and he just wouldn't listen. But once he got over that, like in seasons 2 and 3, he was he ended up being one of the heroes when the Kalon tried to take over. So yeah, that was pretty impressive.
Yeah, and saved Isaac, if I remember correctly, too.
Yeah, that's sure he did.
Amy, give me your thoughts on Yaphet.
Very similar to you, Alyssa. Not a Norm Macdonald fan overall. The humor, I just am not a fan of his. So his timing to me just rubs me the wrong way. However, yes, he was able to portray this, especially with Isaac and with Dr. Finn's youngest son. He was working well with them. So he fit. I see why Seth MacFarlane had him and had the character. He's your comic relief. He's all right, this is going to be his line because he's our jokester and the joke's on him type of thing. So I see why he's there, but yeah, not my favorite.
I understand where you're coming from, Amy. I've heard that before about Norm Macdonald. Rest in peace, by the way.
Yes,
he passed away during the production of this before, but he was able to, they were able to get all of his work done for Yaphet before he passed away. I'm a big Norm Macdonald fan, always have been ever since his Saturday Night Live days when he did the news segment and other stuff. And, there's a couple of movies I have him in as well. He's also, I think, a friend of Adam Sandler. He's been in some of his works as well. He's not for everybody, but I've always been a fan. Kyle, what is your thoughts on Norm Macdonald and Yaphet?
I'm like you. I've always kind of liked Norm Macdonald, especially during his SNL days. With the Yaphet, again, one of the things, and I look at what the Orville does with all its characters. Even a secondary character like Yaphet, they really developed this character throughout the show. Yeah, he kind of was the joke of the show, his thing with Claire, but even that evolved. And even towards the end, when he tried to make a legitimate effort with Claire at times, you could just tell he had matured and done and made some changes himself. And one of the favorite things about Yaphet, one of my favorite episodes, it was when he was passed over for Lamar and how much he changed his attitude towards Lamar as the episode went on. Because I think, like a lot of us, we'd be mad if we got passed over, but then he saw what Lamar did and what the courage Lamar had in the situation, and he supported him completely. And that, I think that was impressive. And like I said, his courage with the Kalon situation, and just it was a character that started off probably as a joke note that they made into something a lot more gooed out, shall we say, throughout the series.
That's a good point. I thought it was interesting to have an alien that was gelatinous. I just thought that was a great thing, and they used it as a way of him getting through things and around things and inside, of stuff. So I just thought that was a really cool idea. He just had a mouth and that was it, and he just kind of moved around like a big
no inside stuff, but inside Bortus.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes, inside Bortus, sexually active with Finn, and inside Isaac. He gets around.
Yeah. Now, there was one moment that I did like when he and I think it was Ty, the younger kid, when he promised Claire that he would watch his back and be there for him. And I thought that was kind of a nice moment there. All right, guys. Well, the next character that we're going to talk about appeared in 19 episodes of the Orville, and that is Clyden, played by Chad L. Coleman. Go ahead and give us the little lowdown there on Clyden here, because we have to have a special discussion about him. Amy?
Yes, so Clyden was a Moclan who lived on the Orville with, of course, his mate, Bortus, and their daughter, Toba. Clyden accompanied Bortus through various postings on planetary Union vessels for several years, and both already lived aboard the Orville in 2419, prior to when Captain Mercer joined. Now, in 2422, Clyden left his mate and daughter in a rage after Topa transitioned from male to female, after she discovered she was forced to be male her entire life. He later realized the wrongness of his actions after his daughter suffered great harm inflicted at the hands of the Moclan government. He apologized for his actions, telling Topa it was time that he must change and that he accepted her and was proud to call her his daughter. With Moclus being expelled from the Union for their actions, Clyden joined his mate and daughter in renouncing their Moclan citizenship to remain on the Orville. He and Borders then rekindled their relationship in the commencement rite of the Kazgal, or the renewal of mating vows. And of course, Clyden is portrayed by Chad Coleman.
Otherwise known as the Naked Race. Okay, I want to start this off, guys, because and Kyle, I always think of you when it comes to Clyden because you've given Chad L. Coleman a lot of props for acting, doing a great job acting as this character, albeit acting as a character that basically a lot of people think is an asshole. Clyden's views on, of course, women in general, because that's the way Moclus is, and him fighting against Bortus about wanting, to let their son become a female again, and how he ends up leaving them and all that kind of stuff. We came to really become annoyed by Clyden a lot. And Chad did a great job portraying someone that you're like, why the hell is he with this guy? Mm-hmm. But we did bring up, I think it was with Bortus discussion here, is I feel like there's more to Clyden we haven't seen yet, because we know Clyden was born female, and that there must have been stuff that he has gone through that maybe people found out that he was female, and maybe he was persecuted a little bit, or he just knows what happens when the masses of Moclans, males, feel towards women, which is just horrendous stuff here. And so my big question to you guys is, we see him come back and, he apologizes and he does everything that he can. He gets back into the life, of course, and he accepts Topa as his daughter, and so on and so forth. So my question to you guys is, did the character of Clyden redeem himself? I'm going to start with you, Alyssa.
Yeah, that's a good question. He's definitely caused a lot of problems over the course of the entire show. I think he showed up again near the very end of the show, and then after that, he didn't exactly do much. So I think it's kind of hard to tell at this point. Like, he apologized to Topa, and which was a very big step, because as Bortus had mentioned, like, Clyden was the one who was close, who Topa could probably like confide in a little bit more, was the parent that Topa was confiding in a little bit more before he left. So she was missing Clyden. So I think she was just glad to have him back. So in that regard, yes, it's good for Topa that her family unit is whole again. As to whether he's redeemed himself, I think it's kind of early to tell at this point. Maybe if there's a season 4, if he ends up doing more.
That's a good point. What say you, Amy? Did Clyden redeem himself?
Gosh, Kevin, this is a very difficult question. And
it is. Yeah.
I have just weighed back and forth, because as a counselor over students who live in a system that is unfair to them, that have difficult parents, that have parents that don't want them, and similar to Topa, and just being said the most evil of things, and you're like, this is your own child. How are you even the thoughts coming into your head, flesh and blood? And then, so I think, nope, there's no way that you can say and act to your child. There's just no way to come back from that. But then I come to my basic belief of I believe in second chances. I believe that people can change. So I just have to choose to agree because that's my moral belief, is that this was a significant enough change for Clyden to, yes, redeem himself. And the way I look at it, I can't be the judge. That's got to be up to Topa. I don't know if I could. I mean, to be honest with you, I don't know if I could forgive. That's very, very tough.
Well, I
But
noticed. Oh, sorry.
no, go ahead, Alyssa. Go ahead.
I did notice that when Clyden is, distraught and apologizing to Topa, and she says it's okay, and he says no, it's not.
Yeah.
So he knows that what he said and what he did was wrong, and he doesn't want her to just dismiss that either.
That's a great point you brought up, Alyssa, because I don't feel like he personally has redeemed himself fully at all. He definitely opened a door to rejoin the family, but I think he's got a lot of repenting to do, or he has to still prove it to Topa and Bortus, because I don't think he still's got a lot of work to do. Maybe if they have a fourth season, he then fights again, not literally fights, but he fights for the rights of female Mocklins in the future and proves what he means, basically, to a certain degree. Kyle, what do you think? Redemption, or he still needs to work on it?
I think it gets complicated with Clyden, because when we talk about Clyden too, there's one thing a lot of people overlook when they talk about Clyden, and I'm not using this as a defense, but I think it's something you do have to take into consideration. Clyden was born female, and he got changed. So there's a lot of personal aspect of what Clyden might be going through too that he doesn't understand. There's trauma there that he probably doesn't understand, and then you look at the way Mocklin society is and what he's trying to conform, probably even harder, because he was born a female, changed to male, and then he's in this situation. It doesn't justify the actions he fully took by any means. And what things that Clyden did throughout the series were just wrong. However, I do think that there's a start of redemption there. I think Clyden, in his own way, is realizing some of the trauma he went through, and is now starting to understand and wrap his head around that, and trying to accept those things within himself. Is it a road he still has a long way to go on? Yeah, he's got a lot to work on and a lot of things to make up for. But I do think there is a path there. And I think it's a credit to both Topa and Bortus, too, to have the understanding of the trauma Clyden has probably been through that he didn't even realize or talk about, or he buried so deep because he didn't know any other way to deal with it. It's not like Mocklin therapy is probably a big thing. So I think with Clyden, if you go for a fourth season, that would definitely be something to be interested in. The internal conflict that probably is still there within Clyden. So it'll be interesting to see how that plays out.
Good call. All right, guys.
Wait, Kevin, just real quick.
Yeah.
I always talk up Chad L. Coleman because he's a phenomenal actor. If you were ever to meet Chad L. Coleman, and I know you did, Kevin, he is one of the nicest human beings on the planet. And that's why it's so amazing, the performance he gives as Clyden.
I also know he's very excited to be part of this fandom. I've seen him chat, and sometimes he'll take over a conversation or two because he's really excited about it. And he's very interactive with the fans, as you led to, Kyle. So, yeah. Okay, guys, the next two actors were in the same amount of episodes together. And they were crucial to many of the episodes here, and that is the Sons of Claire, BJ Tanner as Marcus Finn, 13 episodes, and Kai Wenner as Ty Finn for 13 episodes. So, Amy, go ahead and give us the lowdown both on Marcus and Ty.
Well, Marcus was born sometime around the year 2409 to, of course, Dr. Claire Finn. an experienced medical officer. Now, Marcus has no father. Claire desired children, but by her own description, she never found a man suited to be her husband. So Marcus was born through artificial impregnation of his mother. Several years later, his brother Ty was born by the same method. Ty was born sometime around the early 2410s. And Ty, let's see. She never, okay, so Claire did have a husband, but was divorced. And that, she says, was the only man that she ever married and loved. And Ty's older brother, Marcus, was also born through artificial impregnation. And yeah.
Both by the same method. There you go.
Yeah.
All right. So, guys, I wanted to ask you real quick on these two guys. I remember I think it was during the Claire Finn episode of this limited series here. I thought they did a great job writing children in this series. And I thought these brothers were, first of all, very tight. The younger one, of course, was very good with the piano. The actor learned how to play piano. Younger brother also discovered what soon became the atrocities that the Kalon were hiding in their caverns below. But I didn't really find them annoying. There's that one time where they were like fighting on the shuttle when they were going on vacation and, over the video game. But other than that, I thought they were written pretty well and that, they both love their mother. So, Alyssa, I want to start with you. What is your feeling on Marcus and Ty?
Yeah, I also think they're written really well. I think they do write kids really well because they're brothers. They fight, but you can also tell that they care about each other. They look out for each other. They love their mom. They love Isaac. And yeah, like Ty offers to go crawl through that tunnel to go help stop the Kalon. So they're both, and Marcus has also shown that he's brave. So they're both brave. They're on a starship. They see like all this stuff happen every day. Yeah, I do think they're really well written.
Yeah. What about you, Amy? What are your thoughts on Marcus and Ty?
Yeah, I think, well, compared to Star Trek writing children, they do a way better job. So, and they're realistic. They're like identifiable. Like I can relate and look and say, man, those kids are so annoying. Well, yes, they are, because kids are annoying. And look, they're so nice to each other sometimes, and sometimes they're picking on each other. That's because kids are. And look, they're doing amazing things. They're helping out. They're smart. They're intelligent. They know how to talk to adults. And they, of course, when they get locked up in the shuttle bay and, they complain and have to go to the bathroom, like they just were written so realistically without being annoying, but annoying to make them realistic because kids are annoying. Have I said that enough?
Yeah, especially when Star Trek has them. So yeah.
Yeah, no, they add a lot to the crew and of course to Claire Finn, but they add a lot to the stories. So
yeah. Kyle, your thoughts on Ty and Marcus?
I think they were a strong addition to the show. I obviously at times they were annoying. It's like Amy said, they're kids. They're gonna be annoying. I thought there was, especially Ty, sometimes really did rub me the wrong way, just and how he acted sometimes. But he's a kid. But the thing about it, and I especially think with Marcus, we really saw Marcus go through some things and really mature as the show went along as well. And I really think if there was going to be a fourth season, I really think both of those kids would play a big part in whatever Claire's storyline would be in that fourth season. In fact, I could see it by the time they do a fourth season, maybe Marcus is a cadet in the Union or something along those lines. That could be very interesting.
Do you think we'd recognize them because they'd be so much older?
Yeah. I think Marcus, yeah, probably. Ty, on the other hand, because I mean we're talking Stranger Things leap at this point.
Yes.
Yeah. All right, guys. The next guy I want to talk about here has been 11 episodes, and I'm going to kind of tease. I've been kind of, tipping my hat on one of my favorite characters here. And it might be the shirt that I'm wearing here. I'm wearing Dan, Sweetness shirt. I'm a huge fan of the character of Dan, and he's played by Mike Henry, and that's D-A-N-N, Dan. And he was in 11 episodes. And Amy, I'm going to go ahead and read this one because I'm a fan of Dan here. So Dan is a lieutenant and engineer of an unnamed species stationed on the USS Orville. According to Admiral Tom Halsey, he has been stationed aboard the Orville prior to the promotion of Ed Mercer to captain. Dan was born on a planet called Plednizak at an unknown date, quote, a 2-dome cabin on the shores of Lake Trillic, where a creek of liquid mercury ran behind his house. He had a younger sister named Jan with 2 N's, and the two were raised by three parents, normal for members of their species. 3 parents. There you go. Dan later said that the Lake Trillic area was a beautiful place to come of age. Dan took to engineering at a young age. He built an electronic water wheel in his Mercury Creek that generated enough power to generate a force field. He used the force field to trap Jan in a tool shed so he could play with the Terrazon blocks, whatever that is. In the winter of 2419, Dan suggested to Captain Ed Mercer and First Officer Kelly Grayson that the ship should have music in their lift, otherwise the elevator. With their blessing, Dan added a selection of music that played in the ship's elevators. Sweetness, Dan's catchphrase used to express delight. I don't know what it is about Dan. He might have seemed a little annoying at first, but I just love that he was just hanging around. He was always happy. He wanted to date one of the members, and we saw how that happened. I just like Dan having around. We always need to have a Dan, and but what's really weird is he seems like he seems like an extra out of like, an 80s high school movie. He's an alien, but he feels like he was raised on Earth, which is the only thing I kind of question with his mannerisms and stuff. So I don't know if he was raised by 3 parents. I was wondering if one of them was from Southern California, Venice. I don't know. So Alyssa, give me your thoughts on Dan.
I'm gonna be honest, he's not one of my favorites. I just I don't know. I just couldn't get into like that. I don't know, his jokes, maybe, I'm not sure. But I do think it's kind of funny that he just can't read the room. Like if somebody's upset, he's just going to keep talking and it doesn't really matter what else.
You're right about that.
He goes into the elevator and Ed and Kelly are like fuming at each other and he's standing in the middle saying, we should get some music. And then he sees them again and they're even madder. And then he's still talking about the music. Mm-hmm. And that just like continues throughout the entire show. So yeah, I guess maybe he grew on me like throughout when it went on and he's still in engineering with the others and he's more like one of the group instead of like inserting himself into other conversations. But yeah, I don't know.
What about when he's eating the Orville cookie? Oh no, it's going in my face. Amy, your thoughts on Dan?
Now, wasn't he he wanted to date Tala, right? Or
no, the other security one.
Yeah, Kiali.
Yeah.
Was that it? Oh, wait. Tala Kiali and Alara Katan. Yeah.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I really like that. And their little fun, together and their little dates. I guess what I'd say about Dan is that everyone can be more like him and be happier because he's like, all right. Oh, you don't want to go out with me? All right. That's cool. Move along. He doesn't take it personally. He doesn't, because why? Why get upset? Just, all right, move along. That's what I like about Dan.
Gotcha. Kyle, what say you about Dan?
Well, first of all, Dan is your spirit alien. So
this is true.
There is another lifetime where Dan might go by the name Spicoli. I'm just saying, because he just lives in his own little world and nothing else can penetrate it. And he just goes with his flow and does his thing and ain't nothing going to stop him from doing it.
Mm-hmm.
Fast times at Pledniziak High. All right, guys. The next one's an interesting character. It's pretty much kind of a main character of the crew in season 3. And that is Charlie Burke, who was in all 10 episodes of season 3. Amy, go ahead and give us the lowdown of Ann Winters, who played Ensign Charlie Burke.
Well, she was a human ensign and served aboard the Quimby until it was destroyed by the Kalon during the invasion of Earth. After Ensign Burke joined the Orville as its navigator, and effectively ending a series of interim navigators that started when John Lamar was promoted to chief engineer. Now, Charlie grew up in Texas. As a child, she loved eating pancakes with butter and no syrup or fruit, and still loved the food even as an adult. She joined the Planetary Union's fleet, serving as an engineer. And while she was on the Quimby, Charlie met fellow ensign Amanda, and the two became best friends. Charlie developed romantic feelings towards Amanda, but did not tell her. Charlie and Amanda fought in the Kalon invasion of Earth. The Quimby came under heavy fire by the Kalon spheres while the two were performing an emergency reset of the navigational computer, and an evacuation was ordered. Charlie and Amanda managed to reach the escape pod only to discover the sequencing mechanism was jammed. Amanda exited the pod to launch it manually. Charlie escaped in the pod while Amanda died in an explosion and destruction of the ship. Charlie had never told Amanda of her feelings, and Charlie deeply loathed the Kalon from then on. Charlie eventually sacrificed herself at the Battle of Draconis 427, destroying a quantum weapon to stop the genocide against the Kalon despite her hatred for them. Her actions led to the Kalon re-evaluating their hatred of organic life and making peace with the Union.
Awesome. And of course, portrayed by Ann Winters. So from the get-go, we learn of Ann Winters, or excuse me, Charlie Burke's feelings towards the Kalon, and of course directed her anger and directed, right at, of course, Isaac. And then eventually throughout the season, through the help of, was it Timus? We learn that she said, she learns to not judge all of them. And there's a couple of nice moments there. And she learns to finally accept Isaac as maybe not a friend, but as a coworker that she can work with. And it was kind of nice to see her go that. And then she sacrifices herself to save everyone else and the Kalon, which I thought was very interesting. I didn't see that coming, to be perfectly honest with you. I wanted to ask you guys, because I kind of feel the character of Ann Winters, because of her, most of the season 10 of loathing of Kalon and directing it towards Isaac. She may not have been completely likable, but she had a lot of important skills that became important throughout the season in helping fighting or figuring stuff out. And Alyssa, I want to start with you regarding Charlie Burke. What is your thoughts on her?
I feel like I've seen like some people online talking where I kind of agree that her arc could have been better if it hadn't been so rushed. I guess because it was only one season and she spent so long hating Isaac. And then by the time she finally started coming around, the season was almost over. What I did find interesting about her, though, is at the beginning, she's flat out disobeying orders and saying, I don't agree with it. I don't think that the Kalon are worthy of saving. So I'm just not going to do what you say to do, even though you're the captain. I'm just not doing it. I just can't do it. And then at the end, she has come around to Isaac and Timus, but by no means does she like the entire Kalon race. She still thinks that they're making the wrong decision, but she gives her life to follow orders. I don't think it's necessarily because she wants to save the Kalon. It's because I was told to do something. I have a mission and I'm going to get it done no matter what the cost is. So I thought that was interesting for her. Like, she is friends with Isaac. That's very clear that she and Isaac trust each other and she's very close with him at that point. But whether Isaac lives or not doesn't depend on whether she's able to stop that weapon from going off. So she is saving a race that she herself still hates, but she does it anyway.
Yeah. What say you, Amy?
Yeah, Alyssa, I think you're right. The writing just wasn't solid. And my couple of examples, like, okay, yeah, so she had this friend, Amanda. All right, she was developing emotions, and that was what was taken away. So that's where her hurt is coming from, that missed opportunity. But that really is on her. So it is misplaced a little bit. And so for her to be like so mad, angry against the Kalon and Isaac, like, you just met Amanda. Okay, a couple years. This is not life destroying. I mean, yes, it's terrible, but to have that level, I just felt was an overstep. And then, so I was like, yeah. And then her figuring out, oh, I can work in the fourth dimension and I can solve this, but then not really doing, like, no visuals to back up what she was doing. I just sort of felt, and again, I think it's because it was rushed. And so we've got this hyperbole of anger against the Kalon, and then we're gonna make a sacrifice, which was beautiful and thankfully led to the Kalon. So I guess just a little disproportional with her, the emotions, and with her, and in part because she's so young. And so it's just a little out of proportion, is what I'm getting with her character.
Gotcha. What about you, Kyle? What do you think, Charlie Bird?
I think the issue with Charlie is that when she came on the show, she felt like she was put in there specifically to cause conflict with Isaac because they didn't think anybody else on the crew would have that conflict with him as much. And I think early on she was very much a one note character, and and then they tried to make her like this like genius level person, and it all felt kind of forced. Like they could never quite find the right rhythm for her until the very end. And what you talk about too is, I don't think her making the sacrifice was necessarily just following orders. I think it was her realizing one genocide doesn't make another genocide right.
Right.
A little bit of moral ethics kicked in there as well. And I think again, it just really felt like she was brought in for this season for one point and one point only. And them killing her off at the end, it was that one season story arc. And it just felt like this was a character that if they would have, one of the few characters I've ever think they put on the Orville where they really didn't put as much effort into developing the character as they could have.
Yeah, it's a good call. All right. Okay, guys, we got a lot to cover, so I'm going to kind of combine a couple of them. I just want to get your quick thoughts on some of them. Next one we have here is these two guys. We have Kyra Santoro, who played Lieutenant Jenny Turco for 10 episodes. And we also had Larry Joe Campbell, who played Engineer Steve Newton for 7 episodes. I thought it was interesting that Jenny Turco characters in 10 episodes, we didn't really get a chance to really know her. We know that she dated Lamar briefly. She made some Orville cupcakes, and we definitely got a little more of Steve Newton in 7 episodes, especially the command performance episode when he lost someone and so on and so forth. But I want to kind of get your guys' thoughts on these two characters. Alyssa, start with you.
Yeah, I think they're kind of there, but it's nice to have characters like that where Dan is a little bit more because we see him more and he interacts a little bit more with the main members of the crew. But we don't see these two as much. But it is nice to have characters that, like, yes, of course you're going to see the same faces every day when you go to work, even if you don't interact with them more than maybe 2 or 5 minutes. So it's nice to kind of have some consistency that even if they don't speak, like you see them in the concert scene, or you see Jenny in the concert scene when Bortus is singing, or like you'll see, the engineer Newton when they're doing karaoke and he's like dancing in the background. So it's nice that they are there. The little bit that I saw of Turco, I thought she was kind of cool. Like she dated Lamar for a little bit and then they broke up for whatever reason. They didn't even like go into that. But then like he's trying to give Isaac terrible advice and she's like, no, just leave him alone. Let him figure it out.
Yeah. Amy, what about you on these two guys?
Yeah, Turco, the only thing I remember her is the cupcakes, and I thought that was really cute. So that's all I've got to say about her. And Mr. Newton, gosh.
He was
I
a season.
can
He was a season 1 guy, so you have to kind of go back
Yeah.
to that.
Yeah, and I liked him, and I thought he was a good, like, fit in the engineering to he worked well with Yaphet, and he was sort of like, "Well, who do I follow when they got Lamar in or some" there was something there that he sort of was the not the deal breaker, but I don't know. I can't great character.
Kyle, your thoughts on these two?
Well, with Jenny Turco's character, again, just a familiar face you see pop up every now and then. But I liked the original chief engineer. I thought the personality had kind of was fun with that little bit of gruffness he had to it. But we all knew that, just like Star Trek, they were going to promote one of the main group into that chief engineer role, especially when we realized our chief engineer wasn't in that many episodes. So I think he was great while he was on the show, and he filled the role he needed to until they moved Lamar into the chief engineer role.
Yeah, agreed. All right. We have to spend a little bit of time on Topa here, guys. Played by two people, one male and one female, of course. Besson Yates played the male Topa for 7 episodes, and Amani Polan played Topa for 4 episodes. Now, obviously, very important character regarding, the political aspect with the Mocklins. And brilliantly played by both actors here on this. I want to get your guys' thoughts on Topa. Alyssa, let's start with you.
Yeah, Topa's one of my favorites. It's cool that she's I think she's the only one that we actually got to see her grow up, because we saw when she was born, and then she's either a preteen or a teenager in what we would consider that by the time the show ends. And yeah, she's definitely matured over the course of the show. It's cool that all the Mocklin plots and Topa kind of mirror each other. So whatever Topa's always drawn into whatever is going on. So even in season 2, when Topa's having a fight at school because this student is a female and I don't need to listen, I don't need to pay attention to anything that she says because she's not worth it, because that's what Topa's learning at home from Clyden. And then there's a plot that mirrors that the main crew is dealing with. And then when Topa gets older, then we have the Tale of Two Topas thing. And so she's very tied up in that. But yeah, a lot of the plots revolve around Topa, and she's one of my favorite of the guest characters.
Yeah. Amy.
Yeah, one thing that Topa really brings, and if you've been listening to these podcasts, we ask how does that character, for the universe. And so definitely shocked, there's females. Okay. Topa was born female. Oh my gosh, what? There's females. So we are learning so much about the Mocklins because of Topa, and both actors do fabulous, and to have them speaking these words that are so politically just matchbox, ready to go up in flames, and they're giving these words and portraying this person who just wants to be really, really good. And we learned so much about Mockless.
Kyle, what about you, Topa?
2 phenomenal young actors who were put in a very serious role, and a role that required them to deal with a lot. And I think both actors did a phenomenal job in the role. Obviously, I think our young female actor who played Topa as a female really shined and was really having to deal with a lot. But I think both of them did a phenomenal job with it.
Yeah, agreed. Well done. Well done. Like I said, the Orville knows how to work with young actors, and you can definitely tell. All right, the next 2 we want to mention here is we have Graham Hamilton, who played Kalon Primary in 6 episodes, also played the Kalon named Timus, as previously mentioned. And we also have Chris Johnson, who played Cassius for 5 episodes. Of course, the human school teacher on the Orville that dated First Officer Kelly Grayson. I want to start with you, Alyssa. Your thoughts on these 2? Is anyone memorable to you?
I did not realize the same guy played Primary and Timus, so that's pretty cool because they are two very different characters.
Yeah.
Even though they're both Kalon, they are pretty much as different as Kalon can be. So yeah, that's really cool. Didn't know that. Cassius, I'm sorry, he was boring. He didn't do anything, and that might have been on purpose, like to make the viewers root for Kelly to get back with Ed. But I just couldn't get into Cassius.
Amy, what say you on these two?
Yeah, I really liked Cassius. I thought he was really good for Grayson to sort of like a rebound. I mean, yeah, it wasn't going to last. And I think that's why he was written so boring and so normal and, you know, has this 9-to-5 job that goes against her being on call, basically, type of job. To him, he's the settle down, you know, works with kids, probably wants to have kids, opposite her, career driven, you know, so they definitely were written to not get along, but I just liked him. He was just a nice, good guy. So I was sort of rooting that they would work out together.
Kyle, what say you?
Cassius was brought in to be the average guy for the unaverage woman, and it was just a bad pairing, and he was kind of boring, to be honest with you. And of course, Primary Timmons, he did a phenomenal job. I think he, you know, especially just with what he was portraying in both characters, and to be able to be the good and evil really made it interesting to see him playing both of those characters out.
All right. The next one we have to touch on here, because if we get to season 4, we're gonna have Michaela McManus back as Talea in 4 episodes. Of course, she also played Janelle Tyler in Secret and dated Ed Mercer, and then we know what happened. She ended up having a baby together here, guys, and she ended up becoming you know, the leader of the Krill. And things got very interesting here. And of course, as I mentioned, portrayed by American actress Michaela McManus. One of my favorite guest stars in this, a really cool plot line that we got out of this as well. Listen, I want to get your thoughts on Talea.
It's hard to believe that she was only in 4 episodes because
I know, right?
So much happens with this character every time she showed up. And yeah, she's probably one of my favorite of the Orville's villains. Like, not that I like her personally, but whenever she shows up, you know that something dramatic is going to happen and the stakes are going to be raised. So yeah, and she's a very interesting character for sure. And it's always fun whenever she shows up. And when you said 4 episodes, I'm like, wait, that can't be right. But yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
That's hard to believe because she does so much.
Amy, Talea.
Yeah, absolutely. Love her character. And Talea, I love that she was always, you kept falling for, you know, the human, and that was all an act. And
we should go on a trip together.
Yeah. And I'm just like, oh, you try to play it off that it was, but yeah, she's got feelings for Ed.
Kyle.
This is one of the characters who needs to be part of the main cast of season 4. If it happens. This is so phenomenally played, and to see this character and how much they changed from every appearance, and going from a teacher who seemed innocent to this vengeful Krill to now this dictator, and yet there's still so much more complexity there because of her daughter, because of her, whatever her emotions are for Ed. This is a character that really needs to be a major part if they do a season 4, really, so we can really dive in and really get some time with her, because I think it's worthwhile, and she was so phenomenal as that character. It was one of the best performances of a guest character on the Orville.
Agreed. All right, now, obviously, we couldn't mention every single guest star they had, whether they're in one episode or not. I had to kind of pick the cream of the crop, and we're gonna finalize the reoccurring guest stars here. And I'm gonna ask you your favorites with these 2 here. We have, of course, the first one is John Fleck as the Krill ambassador for three episodes. And then we have Georgia Wiggum as Lysella for 2 episodes here. And just to remember, Lysella, she was the barista from the planet Sargas 4 that helped USS Orville rescue navigator John Lamar from the social correction. That was the up-down button badge thing going on there. And she came back for the last episode of season 3. And I think we've had a discussion about would it be cool if she actually joined the Orville crew in the future. For those of you that don't know, she knows Seth well because she plays one of the main cast members on the Ted TV series. And they just wrapped up season 2. So obviously Ted knows, I'm sorry, not Ted, but Seth knows her very well. But I want to get your guys' thoughts on these 2 characters. Let's just start with you.
I have rewatched many of the episodes several times, and I do not remember who that Krill ambassador is. Like, I know he's there, but I couldn't tell you anything about his character.
Yeah.
Lysella, I did like. I would not be surprised at all if she is a regular character in season 4, since she did decide to stay on the Orville. The actress does work very closely with Seth MacFarlane being on Ted. And with Charlie gone, it would probably be good to have that little bit of a younger character who's maybe just adapting to the ship and also Union culture. So to get to learn some new things about Union culture through the eyes of someone who is brand new to it would be very interesting. So yeah, I think it would be cool if she were in season 4.
Gotcha. All right. What about you, Amy? What do you think of these 2?
Yeah, they're great. I agree, Alyssa, with what you said. And I liked her, especially when she was making that decision. And I think she chose correctly to stay. I like that choice.
Yeah. What about you, Kyle?
I think it was a great choice. She was actually one of my favorite guest stars in season 1, as far as just the performance she gave and the character and the importance of the character within that episode, and how much they changed her view just by seeing what else is out there in the universe.
Yeah, that's a good call. All right, guys. So here's what we ask as we wrap up this part where we talk about the reoccurring guest stars. I want to ask you who your favorite was and why. Of course, we have Yaphet, Clyden, the boys, Dan, Charlie, Turco, and Newton, and Topa. Yeah, so I wanted to kind of get you guys' thoughts on that. And Alyssa, I'm going to start with you. Who is your favorite of that group?
Oh, wow. Probably Topa as a character. Topa is one of my favorites. It's nice to see her grow throughout the show. And then in terms of, obviously, the actors who played Topa were really, really good. But another one in terms of acting ability would be Talea, because whenever she shows up, like, she just really gets into being the bad guy, being the villain. So you know that things are going to happen whenever she's there.
Yeah, good point. Amy, who's your favorite of these guest stars?
Well, I'm thinking.
Tough choice, I know.
Yeah. So my top 3 are Claire's kids, Topa and Talea. And I'm going to Alyssa, who did you say?
I said Topa and Talea.
Topa and Talea.
Oh, so you chose 2. Well, then I will choose Claire's sons, just so we can represent. But I also agree with Alyssa.
Okay, Claire's sons. There you go. Kyle, who is your favorite of these guest stars?
Talea is very up there because of just every episode she was in was phenomenal and just very key. But you know what? I'm going to actually give a little shout out to Clyden here, because if nothing else, whenever you had a Clyden episode, you were going to be dealing with something, and you were going to have something that was going to make you think for the most part. And again, I go back to the performance Chandel Coleman gives us. Clyden is just phenomenal, because he makes you hate that character, and he makes you he makes you uncomfortable around that character. And again, it's not so much about, it's just the performance and the arc Clyden goes through.
Yeah, it's a good call. Yeah, I like that you've always been a proponent for that character and Chad's performance of it. So I appreciate that. Well, I know I'm wearing the Dan shirt. He's one of my favorites, but I'm going to go I'm gonna go with her. I love that we have a character that is someone like Talea. And I like that we got both versions. We got the human and we got the Krill version of it. But man, when she's a Krill, she's just so good. And I like that there is a story arc with our captain. And I hope that we get more of that later on. So yeah. All right, guys, we are not done yet. Next, we're going to talk about the admirals. And I want to kind of go through these quickly here. We have, of course, Victor Garber, who plays Admiral Halsey, 13 episodes. He got a lot of burn, including the first episode. Then we have Kelly Hu, who played Admiral Ozawa in 8 episodes. Ted Danson played Admiral Perry in 6 episodes, or as we call him from Star Trek terminology, Badmiral.
Mm-hmm.
And then we had Ron Kanda, who played Admiral Tucker for 3 episodes, and Andy Chapman, who played Admiral Howland for 2 episodes. I want to start with you, Amy. Now, it's obviously, we like Halsey. He's been like the good admiral, and whenever the crew gets chastised for doing something really, really bad, he's not the one that does it. It happens to be the other admirals that send him in to do it. But I want to get your thought. Who is your favorite admiral out of all of these?
Yeah, it's definitely Halsey. He is the father figure admiral going around, and he has individual relationships with the Mercer and Grayson, but then he knows them together. So he can deal with them together. He can deal with them individually. He can speak to them, and they seem to listen to him. He's can be firm-handed. He's had to tell Mercer, calm down now. Let's chill out. So I gotta go Halsey. He really does it, and he's got this just a nice aura around him.
What about you, Kyle? Who's your favorite admiral?
It's Halsey. I mean, Victor Garber is fantastic in that role. He's the most level-headed of the admirals, and probably can see it from both ways. And I think he acts as such a good mentor to Ed and Kelly both, but especially Ed. I mean, I think he's the most important admiral they have in the show. I think he has the most influence.
I feel like too, Alyssa, that he seems like he's above everyone else, like in rank. He seems to be because he's able to tell someone, a subordinate, recall all the ships. It's that type of thing. So yeah. Alyssa, what are your thoughts? Who's your favorite admiral?
Halsey is definitely my favorite admiral. The funny thing about him is when I turned on this show, not knowing what it was and not really knowing why I was watching, he was the first one I recognized because growing up, I liked the Annie, Wonderful World of Disney version of Annie, and he was Daddy Warbucks. So when he showed up, I was like, wait, he's in this show. That's interesting. But he's my favorite. I think it's interesting that he knows what the difficulties are with staffing Ed and Kelly together, and he does it anyway. Like knowing that they're going to fight and knowing that they're going to have some issues to work through, and that it's probably not 100%, that is probably frowned upon by the other admirals, but he does it anyway because he knows that they're going to work well together. But yeah, as an admiral, he's one of the ones that always looks out for them and kind of like sees more eye to eye with Ed and Kelly on certain issues than the other admirals do. So yeah, Halsey would be my favorite for sure.
Yeah, mine too, hands down. Love Halsey. Great performances and all. I did want to give a shout out to what's her name? Kelly Hu as Admiral Ozawa, 8 episodes. There's just something kind of cool about it, especially when there's some of the battle scenes and towards the end of season 3, and she's commanding a ship. And I've always been a big fan of Kelly Hu, just everything that she's done. So I'm a big fan of hers as well. So, all right, guys, let's get into the next part here. We have the extra special guest stars here. And we're going to start, of course, the special guest stars. Excuse me, Rena Owen and Savina for 4 episodes. Okay, and then we have for sci-fi fans, of course, of other things. Bruce Boxleitner played President Alcazan for 3 episodes, and we also had Leighton Meester played Laura Huggins for 2 episodes. And then we have what I call the Seinfeld contingency. We had Patrick Warburton as Lieutenant Tharl for 2 episodes. And of course, we had Jason Alexander as Alex for 2 episodes as well. Alyssa, who is your favorite special guest star out of this group?
Oh, wow. I liked Havina until I didn't. in Midnight Blue, when she did what she did, I did not agree with that decision, and she was just so stubborn about not telling. Topa almost died because of her delayed reaction to trying to help them solve anything. So I think that she plays the part very well. I do like Havina in most of the episodes that she's in, but the last one that she was in left a bad taste in my mouth.
Good point. Okay. Amy, who is your favorite of these special guest stars?
So it goes against with what I was saying with Norm Macdonald, but I'm going Lieutenant Tharl just because
Yay, Mr. Esophagus dude. What is it about Tharl that you like?
I just love Patrick Warburton so much. His voice is dead giveaway. And I just know what to expect. And I'm not saying it's good, but he makes me laugh. I know.
He's on the short list of working in Seth's productions because he was also in a Ted movie as well. It might have been in both of them, but for second one for sure. Kyle, who is your favorite special guest star?
As much as I love Patrick Warburton, and as much as I have to give him love to Tron himself, Bruce Boxleitner, it's Laura Huggins. There's no other answer. It's Laura Huggins. It's Clayton Meester as Laura Huggins. It's some of the most powerful emotional episodes of the show. We get so attached to this character because of the emotion she brings out in Malloy, and just we're on the ride with this character in both episodes she's in ways that, as a guest star, is a lot more than just, oh, hey, I'm just making a quick guest appearance on a show. You get emotionally attached to this character for somebody who's supposed to be living in the past and not. But yeah, it's Leighton Meester as Laura Huggins.
I'm with you, Kyle. Leighton Meester is my pick as well. She's just so damn cute. She's so talented. I love that you see her singing in this. And the chemistry with Scott Grimes is amazing with those 2 episodes that she is in. And it just breaks your heart when you find out what happens in the second of the 2, when the timeline looks like it's going to be changed and stuff. And I would hope in one way or another that if we got more, I would love to see her come back in some fashion. I think that it would be great. I don't know how, it would be interesting. But yeah, she definitely my choice as well. So, all right, let's get into the next one here. Here is the extra special guest stars. This is where it gets interesting, guys. And the first one is Rob Lowe, who played Dorilio for 2 episodes, who releases some pheromones that make you horny, apparently. And of course, thanks to a certain movie called A Million Ways to Die in the West, we have Charlize Theron, season 1, played Priya Levesque for 1 episode. And also we have Oscar winner F. Murray Abraham was one of the chairmen there in 1 episode. And also we have Dolly Parton for 1 episode. She came in as well. And then we have Liam Neeson, also co-star of A Million Ways to Die in the West, also made a cameo in a Ted movie. He was in 1 episode, went uncredited as Javis Doral. And for those of you, if you blinked and you missed it, we had Bruce Willis, who played Grugan, uncredited in 1 episode as the talking plant that Cassius gave to, of course, Kelly. So who is your favorite extra special guest star of this group? Kyle, you want to go first? What you got?
So there's a twofold answer to this. I think the most important guest star is Charlize Theron, because without her, having her on that episode gave the Orville so much clout, because to have this Academy Award winning top of the A-list actress on this startup show in season 1 was so huge, and it got people's eyes on the show. And I think that was a big thing. But as far as just my favorite guest appearance, it's hands down, it's Dolly Parton. the episode was a powerful moment for her, getting 9 to 5 playing in the episode, and just especially considering the subject matter of the episode, I just think having Dolly there just nailed it. And it was
Nice.
something so Orville.
Yeah. All right, Alyssa, our guest ambassador, who is your favorite extra special guest star?
Dolly Parton.
Dolly Parton. Yeah.
The one that she wasn't in, where they just played 9 to 5, is my favorite episode in the whole show. And then you see the Moclan female colony again, and they're playing Jolene, and Havina's telling Topa that like how much it looks up to and admires Dolly Parton. And it's just like the whole thing skirts along the lines of, is it a joke or is it not? And then when she shows up, it's the same thing. But then she has this really great moment and she gets to sing, and then she changes Havina's mind and changes the course of the episode. So yeah, definitely Dolly Parton.
All right. I think I might know who Amy's choice is. So I'm just going to leave it on the screen here. I could be wrong. Amy, who is your favorite extra special guest star? You're on mute, by the way.
Wait, did the pheromones get to you, Amy?
Yes, the pheromones got to me. Woo! That Rob Lowe, come on now. 2 episodes for our extra special. It's where Ed and Kelly break away. And he comes back, and to face it, I freaking love it. And he looks great blue. I'm just saying. And I do want to say, Kevin, I'm a little surprised, and maybe we could segue this like F. Murray Abraham. I'm surprised you don't have him under our Star Trek actors.
I thought about that, but him being in the Oscar category, I had to put him in this one.
Okay.
So,
that's
yeah.
All right.
Definitely. Yeah. I was on the fence about that, but yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
I'm just going to mention my second favorite is Dolly Parton. I love Dolly Parton in this. How can you not love her? And I love how her music became kind of a call to arms for the sanctuary Moclan women. I thought was great. But I'm going to go with someone who I've crushed for years, and that is, of course, Priya Levesque, played by Charlize Theron. The chemistry that I'm going to tell you right now, it might not be your humor because it's kind of crass, but it's extremely funny, is the comedy I've referenced, is A Million Ways to Die in the West. There is also some hardcore funny cameos in that movie. Who's that? Ewan McGregor has like a small part in that role. Ryan Reynolds has an unspeaking role in that. I mean, there's some other Jamie Foxx is in this movie, but the chemistry between Charlize Theron and in this episode with Seth's character is fantastic, and it carries from The Million Ways to Die in the West movie. They're extremely good in that one as well. I highly recommend it. It is rated R, the movie, for reasons, but Charlize Theron definitely gets my vote for extra special guest star. So, all right, let's get into the Star Trek contingency here, guys. This is going to be fun. Oh, as we know, Seth MacFarlane is a huge fan of Star Trek, and he let it be known by getting some special guest stars to star in the Orville that we have seen throughout the Star Trek series. And the first one that we have here, of course, is Star Trek alumni Robert Picardo played Idis Katan for 2 episodes, Alara Katan's father. And we also have Tim Russ as Dr. Sherman in 1 episode. And one of my favorites, we have James Horan, who has been in several Star Trek episodes. If you look at the picture here, you can see he's done 1, 2, 3, 4, at least 5 episodes of Star Trek, and did it for Aliens, also in human form as well. And we also have next, we have, by the way, here's a picture of me and James Horan hanging out with my buddy Norman. He played also a character in the Highlander TV series. Very, very nice guy. We also have Mr. Billingsley, John Billingsley. He played Cambus Barin in 1 episode. And we have Tony Todd, who, of course, has a very long history with Star Trek. Played Worf's brother Kern. Hirogen played the older Jake Sisko in an episode. We also have here. We go back to the next one here. We have Marina Sirtis. She played a teacher in an episode as well. So I'm going to go to you first, Counselor Amy. Of all of these Star Trek alumni actors, and there's a lot to choose from here with a lot of history. So we know that the people working behind the scenes, including Seth, love Star Trek and know who the good actors are to go to. Who is your favorite of the Star Trek acting alumni in front of the camera?
Well, I must say Marina Sirtis, just because she's my Troy. So, but her role and her spot was not really that big. So good job for showing up on the Orville, but I don't want to talk about her. I want to talk about, yes, thank you, Tony Todd. Yeah. I love this man's acting, and for him to show up as Mocklin really just was perfect. So Tony Todd, well done. Best, in my opinion, of our Star Trek actors.
Now, Alyssa, I know you're not up to date on all of these actors for all the Star Trek stuff here, but you've seen these episodes that they're in. And James Horan, by the way, played Sazaron in the Krill episode where Mercer and Malloy had to pretend to be Krill and steal the book or whatever it was. Of these that you do recognize and remember, which of these would be your favorite in these episodes?
Marina Sirtis, Troy is definitely one of my favorites of the Star Trek people, and I'm sure we're going to get into who the director of that episode is later, but he's another one of my favorite Star Trek people. So the two combined together, and this is my favorite episode anyway. So yeah, I have to go with her for sure.
Sanctuary.
Yes, Sanctuary. I do think it's pretty interesting though that you could have anybody pop up in like a lot of alien makeup and then find out, oh, it's this person who was in this Star Trek show. So I think that's pretty cool.
Right. Kyle, what say you of the Star Trek alumni that appeared in front of the screen? Who is your favorite?
I think there's a tie, and it's partly because they both play a central part in one episode, and it's, of course, John Billingsley and Robert Picardo. I think that episode is so good, and
the home episode specifically,
the home episode, and I think both performances were just brilliant. But Billingsley, especially, playing such an evil character, and just so cruel, and with what the things he was threatening and doing. I think those two just put in a phenomenal performance on both sides of the coin with that episode.
Yeah. Tony Todd usually would be my pick just because I love him in Star Trek, but he doesn't have a big role as the Mocklin that he played. And I'm personally going to go with James Horan just because of his Star Trek royalty and the stuff that he's done. And I loved him as the kind of religious leader, Sazaron, that he played in the Krill episode. And James Horan I've met him a couple times. He's just a wonderful guy. I'm a huge fan of his, and he loves his fans. And it was nice that he came to a Highlander convention and talked about one of the best Highlander episodes that he actually was fortunate enough to be in. So I'm going to go with James Horan myself. All right, guys, we're going to start to wrap things up here because Star Trek continues behind the scenes here, where we got a lot of Star Trek alumni who directed. And we're going to start off with Robert Duncan McNeil. Of course, we know him as Paris in front of the camera, but he also has gone to directing. And he did Command Performance and All the World is a Birthday Cake. We also have, you guys might know this guy, Brandon Braga directed About a Girl, Into the Fold, Firestorm, and Mad Idolatry, and of course was huge behind the scenes with Star Trek and writing and directing as well. And we also have a huge director for Star Trek, James L. Conway, came in and directed If Stars Should Appear. If you look up his directing Star Trek episodes, it's a lot. So yeah, especially for Next Generation. We also have one of our favorites, Jonathan Frakes, director, also still directing Star Trek episodes. We love him, of course, known as number one in Star Trek Next Generation, William Riker, but he directed Priya and Sanctuary. So, of your Star Trek alumni directors, who is your favorite? Amy, I'm going to start with you.
Oh, well, now it makes sense. I forgot. But then when Alyssa was like, oh, who's the director? Oh, Jonathan Frakes, Sanctuary. And of course, Marina Sirtis is going to show up. I freaking love Jonathan Frakes. I'm sure someone else will choose him. But so I'm going Robbie Duncan McNeil. And for him, because in part, like that, All the World's a Birthday Cake, I love that episode. Oh, and I love Command Performance. But in All the World's a Birthday Cake, I really appreciate the angles and just sort of how it was shot for that alien planet. So I'm going with Robbie Duncan McNeil.
Have you met him before?
No, because he is known for canceling all of his conventions at the very last minute. I'm not even kidding you. So I got to have him on the Voyager cruise picture. Oh, I'm sorry. No, he's not there because he canceled. That's right. Last time Voyager had a theme. So no, I have not met him.
Gotcha. I got a funny story about him I'll share in a second. Alyssa, who's your favorite director of the Star Trek directors?
Jonathan Frakes. Although all of them, it's so cool the episodes that you bring up, because those are some of my favorites, the ones that the Star Trek people directed. But yeah, Jonathan Frakes. One thing that I thought was interesting was there was a time that I was rewatching Sanctuary. I'd already watched it, and I had gotten a little bit more familiar with Star Trek Next Generation. And I was looking at, there was like a quick cut to where Ed and Kelly are sitting in the chair. And I was like, why is Kelly sitting like that? That's so weird. She doesn't usually sit like that. And then I remember, wait, Riker sits like that. So he probably did that on purpose.
That's funny. That's a good point. All right. Kyle, who is your favorite of the Star Trek directors?
Okay, so I have this in two categories because I have my favorite, but I also have my most important. Brandon Braga is the most important director out of the bunch, just for doing About a Girl. It doesn't happen. Who knows where we're at? I mean, he did great episodes all the way across the board, but he did probably what, in my opinion, might be the most important episode of the Orville. But as far as my favorite director, it's a man who not only has Star Trek sensibility, but he has the humor. He has everything to be on the Orville as well. I think he could have been a captain on an admiral himself. It is Jonathan Frakes. There is no man better to transition from the Orville to Star Trek and back again. Jonathan Frakes, if they come back for season 4, needs to be a new admiral on the Orville.
Yeah, I like that. That would be really cool. We need to get him in front of the camera on the Orville. That would be awesome. Yeah. Jonathan Frakes is my favorite as well. I love that guy, and I love that he just knows how to direct Star Trek and Star Trek inspired series, but I got to tell you though, funny thing you said about, I was going to ask you about Robert Duncan McNeil here. I like that you call him Robbie, because I thought maybe you had met him, so you feel like you can call him by the nickname, but I'm sure everyone else refers to that. I have a funny story about him really quick. He cancels a lot of appearances when it came to like Dragon Con, whenever he would show up. But Kyle and I were big fans of the TV series Firefly, right? Kyle has a cast picture that he was trying to get everyone to sign, and I was giving all these individual pictures to sign. And we're like, well, what does that have to do with Robert Duncan McNeil? Well, Robert Duncan McNeil at this time was involved with the TV series Chuck, where he was like one of the producers, and he would have to cancel some of his appearances because he was so busy with that. But it also meant that one of the stars I've been trying to get an autograph from the cast series was Adam Baldwin, who played Jane. And he kept canceling all of his appearances because he is a cast member of the TV series Chuck. But when Robert Duncan McNeil finally showed up at Dragon Con, I went and got his picture on a Tom Paris card. And I went up to him saying, look, can you please have Adam Baldwin show up? He keeps canceling because he is so busy on your show. And he got a chuckle at it. He was like, I know, I'm sorry. And what's really funny is that finally Adam Baldwin showed up the next year at Dragon Con. I got him to sign one of my Jane cards from Firefly. And I told him the story. He's like, yeah, I know, man. He keeps me running, busy all the time. But he's a great producer and a great leader. But I told Adam Baldwin, I said, I'm glad you're here. And I'm glad that, Robert Duncan, finally let you show up at a convention. He's in one of my favorite movies of all time called The Bodyguard, where he was the bodyguard, came out in 1980 or 81. And I paid for an autograph for a Jane card, and Adam Baldwin really was touched by the movie in that I brought that up, and he actually had a picture of him as the bodyguard, and he signed it saying, Kevin, will you be my bodyguard? And he gave it to me. I'm like, oh, finally got my Jane picture, and I got a
nice.
autograph sign. So yeah, there you go.
Nice.
All right, guys, we're just going to wrap this up with the directors here, because we have one very important director that directed the first episode, and that is Jon Favreau. He directed Old Wounds. And when it came to getting a big, well-known name, Kyle, you mentioned that having an A+ star Charlize Theron, actor who won the Oscar as well, kind of give some cred to this TV show that people thought were just going to be a parody show about Star Trek. Having Jon Favreau direct the first episode was a huge deal, because now he's a big name director. He is also big in the Star Wars universe. He co-created the Mandalorian, and this was a big deal. Kyle, wouldn't you say?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, we are talking about one of the most well-known names and powerful names in Hollywood right now, and even just a few years ago with the Orville, the Mandalorian had already come out or was in development, and Favreau obviously already well established with his connections with the Marvel universe, with the Fandom, directing the Iron Man films, and just one of the guys that I think having him this is the power of Seth. And this is one of the reasons why I do think the Orville got more seasons, was because he could pull names like this. And I think it added so much credibility, and then it let people see just how much this show is not another type of Seth MacFarlane show. It's a legit show, and it wasn't just a parody.
Yeah. Amy, I want to get your thoughts. Were you aware of who Jon Favreau was?
Well, I know him from he dated Monica on Friends.
Yes.
So
he became the Ultimate Fighter.
Yes. And I really liked him there. And then I found out, and I really enjoyed The Mandalorian, and I knew he was associated with Star Wars. So yeah, he was legit. And I agree with exactly what you said, like to bring him in to sort of set the tone of not just another stupid, or my opinion, stupid comedy, but this is going to be something to watch, and we definitely enjoyed that. Yeah.
Alyssa, were you familiar with who Jon Favreau was?
From Marvel, yes. I knew that he had directed the Iron Man movies. So yeah, I don't know at what point I learned, because I wasn't really paying attention to the credits. I don't know at what point I realized that he directed this, but I think in the process of looking up like exactly what is this show that I'm watching, when his name came up, I was like, oh, okay, that's pretty cool.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and also co-starred as Happy Hogan, right, Kyle?
Yes.
Iron Man.
Hogan.
Yeah. And of course we see him throughout the series, of course. So all right, guys, well, let's wrap this up. We are wrapping up the limited series here of the Orville Crew Profiles, and we've been discussing Star Trek guest stars and Star Trek alumni here on episode 218 of the Union Federation. Want to get your guys' final thoughts. Kyle, start with you.
To see what this show has done and how many people it's brought in at different levels, but done so in a way to where whether you have an A-list star like a Charlize Theron, or somebody like a Norm Macdonald, who is known, but maybe not, is obviously not Charlize, but the ability to Seth to attract people all from all different walks of fame to put on this show is so amazing. And what I think is even more impressive about it was he was able to use that star power early on to keep the show alive and draw people in. until he didn't need it anymore. Yes, he got great guest stars and people who were friends with and he had relationships with. But as the show went along, he didn't pull those big A-list stars as much anymore. He let his own actors really carry the show. Yes, you later on
Great
you
point.
get Dolly,
Great point.
you
Yeah.
get Dolly Parton in, but the show used Seth was so smart in using these A-list actors like Neeson and Charlize and even Bruce Willis to bring people in, and then people got to see what the show was about, and then they liked it and they stuck with it. And then he let his own cast really cook, and that was what it was so brilliant about it.
That's a great point there. Amy, your final thoughts.
You know, when people ask me, oh, why do you podcast? Or, you know, why did I start the view screen? And Kelvin, my co-host, and we always tell people, well, we like talking Star Trek and we like talking to our friends. So we just decided to put it on YouTube. And, you know, I feel like that is what Seth has done here. And you can see that happens a couple times in Hollywood.
I was wondering how you were transitioning from that to this. So
because look at all the friends, and like you were saying, Kyle, the friends and the relationships that he got. He just wants a place to play with all of his friends, and it shows through in the cohesiveness, the chemistry that they have with each other. Even the guest stars can come in and bam, fit right in. You see that with the Ocean's 11, the Brad Pitt and the George, you know that they're having fun. And so it's like, yeah, I will watch them in anything because they're just professionals. And Seth has created this amazing series with friends and, you know, people that he wants to play with. And it's coming through in this, you know, love letter to Star Trek. So I'm in love with it, but it's taken its own feet and made its own spot in this science fiction world. So kudos to Seth for bringing in, amazing people in front of and behind the camera.
I'm glad you alluded to that, because I kind of feel myself that if you were to sit Seth down and look at all the projects that he's been part of, my guess would that he would probably say the Orville was like his pet project, his dream project to be part of, and to get all of these important people. And then, as you said, Kyle, let the cast members cook for themselves and create some great storylines and great drama. Alyssa, you've been our special ambassador guest star here. You've reached out to us and we got you on the show, and you've been absolutely wonderful. So I want to give you time to give us your final thoughts on this, and of course, the series that we've been done in the Orville in general.
Yeah, thank you so much again for having me. It's been great. I think it's really interesting to see in this show, and this goes for like the guest characters and the main characters. As somebody who started watching pretty recently, like I did not see the show as it developed. I saw it once it all like got dropped onto Disney Plus and watched it all from the beginning till the end, like kind of not quite binging it, but you know, I didn't have to wait a week or a year or 2 years for the next episode to come out. It's interesting to see the characters grow, and that you kind of think, oh, this is going to be a one-note character, or like Yaphet. He trips over Yaphet in the hallway. Isaac is the robot on the bridge. Just like every character, like Bortus is from an all-male species. And you think they're like throwaway lines, and that it's just going to be like, oh, well, that's going to be a funny joke that pops up every now and then. And then Topa's born, and it's like, oh, there's a female. And then that whole story is born out of that. And there are so many, and the characters all flesh out, and they have relationships. And how I didn't like Kelly. I thought she was going to be like I did not think she was going to be level-headed. I didn't think she was going to be competent at all. I was like, this is going to be the flirty, like out of it blonde who doesn't like, you know, why is she here? And she's completely the opposite of that. And all of them kind of like Alara, who's like so young, and then she ends up like growing into the role. And then unfortunately she ends up leaving. And then Isaac, so much comes out of him. His whole story, you don't think anything like, I don't know what I thought it was going to be, but all these characters that at first you think, oh, they're just going to be there for like a little bit of fun, a little bit of some jokes, they end up being like fully fleshed out people.
Yeah. Well said. Well said. And something you just said struck a chord with me, especially when we talk about going to conventions and dressing up and doing the costumes. The Orville has created a very vibrant fan base. Maybe not as big, as, of course, as a lot of the other big fandoms out there, but they're passionate. And I'm hoping we get some Orville conventions. That would be kind of fun to see, even if it's just like at a hotel near an airport or something, and then it just kind of gets bigger and bigger. And I feel like even with more episodes, it would just get bigger and bigger. And so yeah, I appreciate that. Thank you guys. As I mentioned, this is the Orville USS Crew Profiles, our 10 episode limited series, of course, here on the Fandom Podcast Network. Please check out our website. You can find Union Fed Podcast on X and Instagram, and please join our Union Federation Podcast Facebook group, where we discuss, of course, both Star Trek and the Orville. You can also find the Union Federation on the BQN. Amy, tell us what's happening over at the BQN and tell us how to find you.
Well, please go to Blue Sky and find us at BQN Podcasts. We are still going strong with our Trexperts quiz. That's usually on Saturday afternoons Pacific time. We've got All Good Things going to be starting back up. We have Galaxy Class that is back up and running. So excited, 2 brand new hosts. So a lot's going on over at the BQN. So go ahead and find us.
Awesome. Kyle, how can we find you, sir?
Well, after tomorrow, I'll actually be released from Planet Taxium, so you might actually see me some places. But you can find me, of course, all over Facebook on all the great pages at the Fandom Podcast Network, whether it's Union Federation, the Fandom Podcast Network main page, wherever it is. And you can find me on social media. You can find me on X or Twitter, whichever you want to call it, at AKyleW. You can find me on Blue Sky at AKyleW, and you can find me on Instagram and Threads at AKyleFandom.
Awesome. My name is Kevin. You can find me on X, Instagram, Threads, Discord, and Letterboxd at Spartan_Phoenix, and on Blue Sky at Spartan Phoenix. Also, head on over to TeePublic, search Union Federation Podcast or Fandom Podcast Network. Get yourself a Union Federation t-shirt. We also have hats and mugs. We get a little kickback with those sales, so help us out there. We, of course, have been discussing the Orville, and thank you guys for listening and watching on YouTube. Please subscribe to the Fandom Podcast Network YouTube channel. We appreciate that support. Alyssa, thank you so much for joining us. We appreciate you reaching out to us.
Thank you so much. It's been great.
All right. As we always say here, first of all, extra special thank you to Kyle and Amy for being with us on this wonderful ride here talking about the Orville. And as we always say here on Union Federation, live long and prosper. And we are without a doubt the weirdest ship in the fleet. We'll see you next time, guys.